So today we have a bit of a different video. This is going to be a list of the top 10 commons to draft from Dominaria United. Now I haven't really done a lot of top 10 or list videos at all for that matter, but if you're interested in this kind of thing, let me know in the comments and maybe we could do some more in the future. So I've played a fair amount of Dominaria United Limited at this point. I was able to play in the early access event on Arena. I've also done quite a few drafts and sealed on Arena, and I went to one of the pre-releases also. And there are some commons that really surprised me. Initially, when I looked at them, I thought they were kind of meh, or maybe I was even kind of negative on them. And some of them are actually good enough that I pretty much always want to have them in my deck at this point. And I say these are the top 10 to draft, but really they're the top 10 for limited in general, I suppose. I'm not sure how different the list would be between draft and sealed. So we have the 10 here. You can see there's one in a sleeve, and there's a reason for that, and we'll get to that when we get to that card. And we're going to start off with a few honorable mentions, but just before we do that, we're going to have a short word about the sponsor of this channel, Face-to-Face Games. Use code 8thPlaceDave to save 5% on your order at Face-to-Face Games, Canada's largest Magic the Gathering store, where qualified orders receive free shipping Canada-wide. Support the channel and visit face-to-facegames.com today. So starting off with some honorable mentions, these are ones that at one point could have been in this list, and I do like playing them a lot, but they didn't quite make the top 10 for me when I put together the list for this video. So the first one we've got is Urborg Repossession. I think this card is actually quite good. It's kind of a regrowth type of effect. So for just 1 mana, you can get back a creature from your graveyard and gain 2 life. So getting the 2 life is already a bonus on the traditional Raise Dead type of effect for black. But being able to pay 3 mana with the kicker cost in total to get back another permanent as well, so a permanent and a creature, is pretty big for just 1 card, and I've found this card actually does a lot of work. The next one is Miria's Outrider. So a 4/4 for 5, it has reach, so there's that. The 4/4 for 5, its stats are okay, but it does damage equal to the number of basic land types you control to your opponent when it enters the battlefield, so you can be doing, 5 damage when this comes into play, which is 25% of your opponent's life, so this actually can do a lot of work and potentially could be higher on this list, but we've got this in the honorable mentions anyway right now. Elfheim Worm, just very good rate in limited anyway. 5/4 with Vigilance and Trample for 5 mana. So Vigilance and Trample are two kind of important ones to go together because this can attack in, get in damage even if it's blocked, but it can also stay back to block with good stats. And then this last one was actually on the top 10 list to begin with, but it's in the honorable mentions now because I actually swapped it out with another removal spell that I think is kind of better. So 1 white, this is basically like an Oblivion Ring type of effect, which is traditionally very good. However, there is a card in the set that can kind of wreck you when you're playing this, and we'll get to that one, which is in here in just a moment. Okay, so into the actual list, starting off with number 10, we have Griffin Protector. So it's a 2/3 flyer for 4, which is okay, but this other ability is actually pretty decent. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn. There are cards in the set that make multiple creatures, so if you make 2 creatures in 1 turn, you could be attacking in with 4 power flying for 4 mana, which is pretty good. You can even make creatures at instant speed. There is the uncommon that's like Raise the Alarm. It's a creature that comes with another creature for 2 mana. So you could potentially be giving this +2/+2 at instant speed, which could be very good. But it's an invasive threat that can grow for just 4 mana. I think it's pretty decent. Next, we've got Heroic Charge. So there's typically a card like this, like an instant speed anthem effect, in almost every set. And they're very similar to this, 4 mana, instant, creatures get plus whatever until end of turn. This one is +2/+1 till end of turn. But for the kicker, being able to give your creatures trample is really big. I've won quite a few games just on the back of this, basically, where, you have like 4 creatures, doesn't really matter what their power and toughness is, because when you play this, they're going to get a big boost, and you can just really surprise your opponent with this. And if you give them trample, even if they line up what looks like good blocks, you can still just get enough damage to win the game. So usually I do like to have one of these in my deck if I'm playing white. For number 8, we have Flowstone Cavu. So this is one that kind of crept up on me, and I haven't played it a whole lot myself, but I've had it played against me a lot, and through that I've seen that it's actually a lot better than I thought it was. So 3 mana, 2/3. It has Menace, which is something that I find myself forgetting a lot. It also has this traditional kind of Flowstone type of ability where you can pay a red mana and give it +1, -1 until end of turn. So just the ability to threaten that makes this very difficult to deal with, combined with the fact that it has Menace. And this can be attacking in with potentially upwards of 4 power for just 3 mana, so this card has actually impressed me a lot. At number 7, we've got Destroy Evil. So cards like this, very similar cards, have existed in other sets. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first time this specific card exists, like it's not just a reprint from another set. But this is the one that I alluded to earlier, where this is a removal spell that actually bumped this one off of the list, mostly because of the flexibility in this. So it's 2 mana, instant. You can destroy a creature with toughness 4 or greater, or you can destroy an enchantment. And there have been many games, actually, where I've used the second mode to destroy an enchantment. This enchantment specifically, doing that at instant speed to get back my creature that was exiled underneath this. So just the fact that, it costs a mana less, it's instant, you can destroy an enchantment, or you can use it as a removal spell on, all of the big creatures. That to me makes this card better than this card, I think. So this one actually I've got fairly high, well, kind of high, mid-range in the top 10 list at number 7 here. And at number 6, we have Sunbathing Root Walla. So you're going to see kind of a trend here in that I kind of think that having abilities like this, just the ability to threaten using this ability, very similar to this card here, I think that makes this a very powerful card. So it's a 2/2 for 2, so it's a bear, even though it's a lizard, but 2/2 for 2, meaning a bear is, it's fine, right? It has average stats. But this one in particular, 4 mana, that's not too big of a cost to pay to use this ability. Give it +1/+1 till end of turn for each basic land type among lands you control. Activate only once each turn. So with Domain being in this set, and there's the common cycle of lands, this can very easily get +4/+4, or I've seen it get +5/+5 a lot of times as well. So, on just your bear, basically, your 2 mana 2/2, which is fine in itself, having that ability is really big, and this card has impressed me quite a lot, so I've got it in at number 6 here. Alright, so moving into the top 5 now. At number 5, we've got Meteorite. This is one that really snuck up on me, and this one is a reprint, so, we've seen kind of how good this card is before, or maybe how not good it is. And I actually, in one of my previous videos, I mentioned how this was a card that I was never really happy to have in my deck. Well, clearly that's changed, seeing as I have it in as number 5 of the top 10. So, a 5 mana rock is not good. But this does do 2 damage to any target when it comes into play, and it seems like a lot of the important creatures in this format have 2 toughness. So this is your mana rock that can kill something that matters when it comes into play, but it adds 1 mana of any color, and just multicolored, like having access to any random color in this set seems very important. There is the domain thing, but then there's also the cards with the off-color kicker abilities, and sometimes those abilities can actually be quite good. So you could have this card in your deck be a 2-color deck, but then also this gives you access to use any of those off-color kicker abilities. And with all those things combined, this card has impressed me a lot, and it's gone to the point where I said I was never happy to have this in my deck, to the point where I pretty much always want to have one of these in my deck, I think. So I am a fan of Meteorite now. So we're finally to this card with a sleeve on it, and we'll see why it's in a sleeve. This is number 4, Crystal Grotto. So many types of cards like this have existed in the past, where it adds a colorless, or you can pay 1 and tap it to add 1 mana of any color. So this is basically a rainbow land. It will give you a mana of any color, at a cost though. But for many of the same reasons why Meteorite really grew on me, it's the same for this. Because, multicolored is so important in this set. This can help you pay for all the things that Meteorite helps you pay for as well. So I like that card for this reason, but also this scries one when it comes into play, and seems like a very small thing to kind of stick onto this card, but it actually matters a lot, because, you know, if you top deck this late in the game, chances are you don't really want to be finding a land, but just the fact that this scries when it comes into play is actually quite big. Like, think about the cycle of scry lands from Theros. When those initially came out, people were kind of down on them, but then they kind of seemed to grow on a lot of people because people realized how powerful it can be to just scry with a land. And those ones come into play tapped. This one comes into play untapped. Granted, it only taps for a colorless unless you want to pay 2, but those abilities on a common here, this card, it seems really good to me, and this is another one where I pretty much always want to have one of this in my deck just to pay for those weird costs. And getting to the sleeve part, you can see this is actually just a printout. I have it in front of another card here. So I've opened around, I think, 48 packs of Dominaria United so far, and somehow I've managed to acquire 0 of this common. So I printed out one just to use for this video. Alright, getting to the top 3 now. There are some here that I think are gonna really surprise some people. Probably not this one though, Lightning Strike. This card has been printed many times. We know this is a good card. It's still a good card. It's great at common. I believe it was uncommon in Ixalan. But, you know, 2 mana, instant, do 3 damage to any target. Very flexible. You can burn out your opponent to win the game. This card is quite good, and I have it in number 3. Number 2, though, what have I got higher than Lightning Strike? We have Tattered Apparition. This is another one that really grew on me. At first I saw this and I was like, meh, you know, it's a flying shade. We've seen things like this before, they're fine. I found this card is more than just fine, though. So, 4 mana, 2/2 flyer, they're okay stats. It's not great, you know, it's like a worse Windrake, but you can pay 1 and a black to give it +1/+1 till end of turn, the typical shade ability. Just like the Root Walla here and this Cavu, just the ability to threaten this is very powerful. Even if you don't use it, when you attack with this and you have open mana, your opponent always has to think, are they going to activate this if I block? What if they have a combat trick instead? Should they even block to maybe force you to use it, and that means that you're not going to have access to your mana for main phase 2, things like that. And also, you know, games can tend to go long sometimes, so you could be pumping this up to become like a 6/6 if you want, or something like that. And, you know, all of that on a flyer. This card has really impressed me, and for those reasons I have it in number 2. Okay, so what's the number 1 card? This is one that I think will surprise a lot of people. I mentioned in one of my other videos how this card really impressed me and I'm a fan of it. This card, though, is a combat trick. Take Up the Shield. To me, this is a card that I always want to have in my deck if I'm playing white. And you might have noticed that several of the cards on this list are white. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 in the top 10 alone, and then there was also 1 in the honorable mentions. And I've had the most success so far playing white-based decks, with it being either white-black or white-blue. So if I typically want to have white in my deck, if I see this card, I'm probably going to want to draft it. So let's take a look at it though. 1 in a white, so 2 mana instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. It gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. At first it might just look like kind of, you know, your regular combat trick. These are in every set. But this one does so much for just 2 mana. So one thing with this is you put a +1/+1 counter on your creature. Usually with combat tricks like this, you just see that it gets something like +1/+1 or plus whatever until end of turn. In this case, it puts a counter so that bonus that you get sticks around even after the end of the turn. Also, it gains lifelink until end of turn. It seems to me like lifelink is quite good in limited, and I tend to value it pretty highly. So being able to give something lifelink can make a big swing, because a lot of times games can come down to, you know, you losing or winning to exactly lethal. So with this kind of surprise lifelink that you get from this, that can kind of make a pretty big difference, especially if your opponent doesn't see coming. You know, they could line up an attack that looks like it's going to be lethal, but, you know, you just play this, and then maybe you actually don't lose the game, you go back to your turn, they've thought they were going to win, they're all tapped out, and then you can swing back for the win. And then also, your creature gets indestructible. So you can kind of think of this as like a removal spell because, you know, you line up your blocks when they attack, or maybe they want to block one of your attacks that looks like it's going to be profitable for them. Well, your creature gets indestructible, so it's not going to die, and with the +1/+1, that gives it, you know, just that much more of a chance of being able to trade profitably and actually kill your opponent's creature and then stick around. So for those reasons, I think this card is very good, and I've surprised myself even by choosing a combat trick as my #1 common to play in Limited. Alright, so those are my top 10 commons to draft in Dominaria United. Let me know what you think of this list. I'm sure that many people probably have different lists. There's probably a lot of cards in here that maybe you wouldn't even include on your list, or you have some cards you really like that I didn't include on mine, or maybe just the order is different. But anyway, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. And also, if you'd like to see more content like this, be sure to let me know. You know, usually I do things like the comedy videos and product openings and things like that, but we could do some more kind of top 10 lists. Anyway, though, if you're still watching, thanks for watching. It'd be cool if you can like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I'd encourage everyone to come join my Discord server. You can find a link to that in the video description below. And in the video description is where you can also find my affiliate links for Dragon Shield. In case you'd like to purchase any gaming supplies, you can follow those affiliate links and help out the channel while you do so. And I'd also just like to take a moment to thank all of the patrons who support me on Patreon. But otherwise though, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.